Welcome to Fantastic Females, our adventure to finding the mythical island of freedom together. I'm Kalyani.
And I'm Rupali. We are your next door finance experts sharing our experiences in the world of money and energetics. Hi everyone, welcome back to Fantastic Females. We've got such an interesting topic today. We are going to speak all things crypto today, and we've got an expert in the house, Yashu Tana, who is a blockchain integration engineer at a cryptocurrency exchange in Africa. He's been within the finance space since 2013, working with IT systems, and has focused on crypto in his personal capacity over the past 5 years and 2 years professionally. In addition to that, we grew up in the same house, and he's my cousin. So super excited to have you on board with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Rupali and Kalyani. And I approve this message. We did grow up together.
Hello and welcome, Yashu, to this conversation continued from last week. Let's carry on.
There's so much that is unknown in this space, right? It's the fear of unknown that kind of really puts people off certain things, takes people time to kind of get on with it. So technology, we spoke about AI last week, where we said, it's such an unknown. When we grew up, cell phones were kind of taken on really slowly. In our family, especially, quite conservative. We got cell phones when we were much older. So I think there's a huge linkage with the fear of the unknown. And I think what makes crypto so interesting yet scary is that the magnitude of it, the magnitude of the impact it can have on someone's life, in a good or a bad way, is what I find interesting. And I know Yashu and I have discussed crypto many, many times before, and I must have, a lot of it must have went over my head, but the 2-3 things that I found very interesting at the time were use cases for blockchain. So things like court cases and resolving court cases and having like a verdict. The second thing was something on art auctioning, using blockchain to auction art, then house purchases and transfer of house through blockchain. And I personally find those use cases so interesting that I think these things would change our lives, wouldn't they?
100%. One of the things that makes me most excited about blockchain is actually the concept of decentralization. And that decentralization will allow us to do things like all of those use cases that you described. So things like deed transfers, if you really think about it, is ultimately just this contract, right? And much like what Kalyani said just now, if that contract was decentralized and millions of people had copies of that deed contract, again, it must be efficient so that it can be easy to pick up and alter, because when you change the title deed, you want to be able to not physically go and tell 100,000 people that you need to change your copy. So efficiency is key. Decentralization is key. And once you have both of those properties, then it's very easy for us to implement any types of applications on this type of thing. There are certain applications that you wouldn't still want to do on the blockchain, right? Things like gaming. It doesn't make sense for gaming to exist on the blockchain. Just purely because of the efficiency of it. Like you want a dedicated computer that's going to be running dedicated hardware to do very specialized things. But the stuff that is important and the stuff that it can do, I think it just needs time to do really well. The one thing that I would like to sort of chat about is the fear, right? So like when you said earlier that people have this fear of the unknown. The fear of the unknown, I think, comes more from the fact that other people are making tons of money. And that's just the cases that keep coming up, right? People are making 10, like you said yourself, right? Kalyani, you made 10x in that initial investment. Yeah. And like they see people experiencing these sort of highs, and they just feel like they can't jump into the sort of experience. And to those people, I say that it's the first most important thing that you can do for yourself. It's going to sound so silly, right? But the first most important thing that you could do to understand crypto and to really start in this space is, first of all, get a decent password manager. Understand how your identity online works, right? Really try to understand that when you put in a username and password into a website, that website has a record somewhere that stores a username and a password and an identifier that identifies you as Yashu on that platform, right? Once you understand how username and passwords work on the internet, it's a very easy step to understanding how public-private key encryption works. It sounds like it's a difficult thing, but actually it's very much not. Your public key, which is your address on the blockchain, is tightly linked to a private key, which you can think of as your password on the blockchain. So when you send to your own address, your private key is the thing that allows you to send funds forward from that address. So it's literally as simple as that. So step one, understand username and passwords. Get a good password manager. Number two is understand how addresses work. And an address can be thought of as simple as a post box. So if someone wants to pay you money, they need to know where your post box is so they can come and pay you money. And then the step after that is listen to podcasts like this, right? Try to find outlets where people who are working with these things and playing with these things can give you real tools to use. So at the end of this episode, I will drop some links in terms of where people can go and get started.
Great.
Some platforms that I used when I started my trading journey. I feel like I've babbled on a little bit here, and I can't remember the question.
You've actually gone straight into our next question, which would have been, how did you get started? Was it like more of a personal journey, or did your work in IT systems in financial organizations kind of lead you with all the computer data background to crypto?
So I started out in the banking field I started out in the consulting field. I consulted for a bank. And actually, before I got to the bank, if I had to think back to the first time I heard of crypto, someone told me that it hit 10,000 Rand. And I was like, that makes no sense. Like, there's this new thing that's worth more than an actual coin of gold. Like, how does that make sense? So I signed up to a site here I don't know if it's everywhere, but there's a site called Luno. And I went and just saw the price of this thing. And it was I think it was from 4,000 Rand to 10,000 Rand in like a week. And this was, I think, the first 2015 cycle where it really took off.
Which is about 1,000 dirhams to 2,500 dirhams.
So I was shocked. I was like, there's no way. And at that point, I thought, this can't grow further. So I'm not going to buy right now. It was probably like 2 years into my first job. And I mean, I had the funds at that point, but I was like, no, there's no way. Like, I'm not going to gamble on this thing that's for certain going to like crash and burn. So then I forgot about it, right? For 2 years, I completely forgot about it. And then in 2017, I was working at the bank, and obviously bankers, they love talking about things like this, right? Like anything that's going to spike up in price is going to be a hot topic. And 2017, the bull run was
cool
very
kids.
much a hot topic. Yeah, I mean, you had things like ICOs. People were like completely, very flagrantly just, what's the word? Not flagrantly, but like they were going crazy. They didn't care about regulations. They were just like, here's this idea, buy this coin, and we promise our project's going to take off, and this token will change your life. So there were a bunch of scammers out there. And again, I thought to myself, no flipping ways, right? Like this is when Bitcoin hit, I think it was like 60 or 70,000 Rand. And that's when I thought to myself, my God, I should have really gotten in 2 years ago when it was 10,000 Rand. And pretty much the same cycle went on. I was like, no, it's going to crash. So then I didn't buy. And then 2019, so again, I left the bank, in between started my startup, started a startup, and, really tried to hone in on my craft and really fall in love with technology again. I mean, I've been building websites and stuff since I was 10. So I've always really loved computers, but now it felt like I was building something that was useful. I really wanted to, be a professional software engineer. Like I wanted to prove this to myself. And so in 2019, when I was sort of consulting for a consulting company, I I decided that I need to get into this. Like I have to at least embrace this new technology, even if I'm not believing in the sort of I don't I may not believe with the monetary side of things. Like I may not believe that this is going to be the most valuable asset in the world. But if the whole world is moving in this direction and I have the ability to understand technology, then the least I should do is just try to understand the tech. So I started reading. I made a few friends who were also, thinking about this, working in the space, and I really enjoyed it. Right, and as soon as I understood that decentralization, along with the blockchain, has all the properties that I generally philosophically think about. Things like how humans coordinate with each other, things with like how we move from a bartering system to this completely made up concept of money using coins, to this whole new made up concept of using notes that represent coins, and then to a completely random thing that said these notes no longer represent coins. All they represent is a promise. Like things like that bothered me. And as soon as I realized that here's this tool that allows you to completely condense all of that history into a single piece of technology, that was super exciting. And that sort of just blew my mind. It
What a
brought me
nerd.
into this. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty
There's
much.
one nerd to another.
I was going to say, are we allowed to say that to each other? Yes, we are. No one else is.
Yeah, so I mean, it blew my mind, and I think that we're still very much at the frontier of where this thing is going to be. I think we are similar to how people didn't understand the internet and how things setting up the internet was hard. Using the internet was completely difficult. I mean, you had dial-up, you had to wait for like a connection.
Uh-huh.
Things were really slow.
And
People
someone
with
would
using
scream,
words
hang
like
up.
yeah,
No one else
exactly.
could be on the phone while you were
Yeah,
connected.
and this was a whole new way that humans needed to now interact with each other to use this tool. Similarly, we're going to have to interact with each other in a different way to use the crypto tool. Things like email, internet, mouse, click. These are terms that were not meaning what we now today know them to mean. Similarly,
Yeah.
blockchain, crypto, NFTs, exchanges, all of these words will very soon become quite ubiquitous. And I don't think we're there yet. And I'm not sure if we'll get there in one generation, but like money took 5,000 years to become what it is today, right? And I think if
Yeah.
this is a new money, it's going to take at least a few generations for it to become completely ubiquitous. But I'm hopeful.
Yeah, you know what the exciting thing is, I think, in all of this is that there's such a huge opportunity. There's so much possibility at this space where
100%.
we're at in terms of it's so early on, and that's why it makes it that much more scary. But I think to our listeners, the thing that I take away from here is, like Yashu followed his passion to answer specific questions that he highlighted. I mean, without having that network or support or anything like that, you just kind of take one step at a time. And we always, Kalyani and I, love kind of spreading the message in terms of no one's ever stuck. You always have a way forward, whether it's crypto, whether it's investments, whether it's working on your personal growth. There's always ways out there. And that's why we're so passionate about bringing fantastic females to our listeners, highlighting the different opportunities there are. And this is why we are covering such a vast range of topics that we're, bring into the space, such as, I mean, the key thing we talk about is traditional investments. And each kind of type of investment has its specific building blocks that you can start at. You can get yourself familiarized with that. And then you take steps towards what you'd like to get to. So like Kalyani's starter pack does that for the world of investments. There must be many other different places that you can kind of, start on your crypto journey too. And so we're just here to spread that message that, if anything is drawing you in, go for it and just take that deep dive. And, you never know where you land up is kind of what I took away from this whole conversation.
Yeah, I mean, despite my negative experiences as well, I'm much richer in what I know than where I started off. I've still got my crypto investments. I'm going to keep them as they are. And I suppose, in light of what you said, Yashu, you would not be worried about the blip in the market right now. Would you kind of keep your focus more on the macro long run in terms of crypto?
That's a good question, and I think there's a few schools of thought here. One school of thought is that you shouldn't worry about timing the market. You should worry about time in the market. So
In the
here,
market, yes.
one correct, and here I would suggest that things do look bleak in terms of where we are. There's been some systemic problems that have come out of how humans behave, right? Like we find ways to pollute, the most virtuous of things. So what we're seeing right now in the crypto market is as a result of course, the macro conditions around the war, macro conditions around inflation, COVID. People don't have funds to spend, and the funds that they do spend are not going to the crypto market. They're going to things that I guess need to be spent on to survive and to save. And because the outlook's so negative, the macro outlook doesn't look great, right? But things do generally pass, and crypto, so far at least, has worked in cycles of boom, like bear markets and bull markets, and we're very much in a bear market right now. But
Yep.
my personal thesis, and again, this is not financial advice to any of the listeners, but my personal thesis has been to dollar cost average into coins that I specifically believe in. And those coins can be like they could be anything, and there's different ways to dollar cost average. Some people do it daily, some people do it weekly, some people do it monthly. So try not to get bogged down with the price movements, because that can take a lot of valuable time from your life, and it's really not worth it most of the time. So my thesis has here been to dollar cost average across the bear market, and then even through the bull market. Like if you're constantly just buying some, again, it should be something that you're willing to lose, something that is completely that you should feel comfortable as an investment. You do need to do your due diligence and understand what you're buying, where you're buying it from, and whether you're actually buying the asset or whether you're using a platform. There are a lot of scam artists out there. You might have seen a certain show on Netflix documenting something like Quadriga CX, where an exchange can very much take your money and show you that you've got funds on their platform, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you own that crypto. So a large part of my education here is to try to get people to self-custody and to hold their own funds. And again, I'm just going to throw back to the earlier part of the sort of conversation, where it's vital that you understand identity online. You seriously, if there's anything you take back from this, even though it's unrelated to crypto, is just getting a password manager and understanding what your identity online looks like. And then bringing it back to the investment sort of thesis is make sure you're holding your own coins when possible. And if not, find exchanges and service providers that are relatively trustable. This is a subjective thing, and it may vary completely from region to region. So yeah, if there are any questions around which region you're looking at, and you're not really sure about if an exchange looks dodgy or not, then yeah, please, reach out and we can chat.
For the totally uninitiated, Yashu, what does holding your own coin mean? Because people might think that investing is simply just buying it on Binance or what have you. What does holding your own coins mean?
There is what's in the crypto world known as wallets. A wallet is a piece of. Okay, let's actually start a little bit on the first principles. So, in mathematics, there is a certain proof, much like how in science we have certain formulas where E equals mc squared. We don't always need to prove it every day, but we know that someone out there who is really smart has proved it, and therefore, up until the point that someone disproves it, is true, right? So very much like how we have certain proofs in science, we have certain proofs in mathematics. In mathematics, there is and I'm really trying to keep it as layman here as possible, but there is a tool that will provide you the capability of taking two really large prime numbers, multiplying them, and giving you a really big, really big number, right? That really big number is something that's so large that two people theoretically shouldn't be able to derive without knowing the two prime number factors that created it, right? So if you use two really large numbers, and I'm talking about like really large numbers, like cosmically large numbers, then it's highly unlikely, again, not impossible, unlikely that two people will come up with the same two prime numbers that create this new large number that's the multiplication of the first two. Now, in mathematics, just let's assume that that's true. If that's true, then all you need for you to have security is the knowledge of those two numbers, right? So much like in when you sign up for your email, you know your username and password. That's the that's the two parts of the combination to your email profile. For Facebook, again, username and password. Certain things, sign in with Google, you again need to know your email's username and password for you to be able to sign in with Google. And then that service provider trusts that Google has authenticated you with your username and password. So very similarly in cryptocurrency, there is what's known as your seed phrase. Your seed phrase can be 12 words or 24 words that you need to store. These words are generated for you when you either buy a wallet or when you download a wallet. And you have different concepts here, things like a hot wallet and a cold wallet. I'm giving you these terms, but they're not really that important to for the uninitiated. But ultimately, a hot wallet is something that's connected to the internet. A cold wallet is something that is not. So if you are wanting to go on this crypto journey, the first step is to find a wallet provider that's going to hold your funds for you. Now, this can be a mobile app. This can be a little hardware device. So there are companies out there that give that sell this device that looks almost like a flash drive. It's called a ledger. It's a device that doesn't connect to the internet at all. Your 24 words or your seed phrase sits only on that device. And when you want to interact with the blockchain, then the device connects to your computer, but the password never leaves. So for someone to hold their own keys or hold their own coins, they have to make sure, and this is the hard part, that you are creating those keys in very, very secure ways. It's much like how if you have a wallet, right? So if you have a bank account and it's got $5,000, you may not go to the ATM, withdraw all $5,000 and walk around with $5,000 in your pocket, right? Like maybe in certain countries that might not be a problem, but places like South Africa, you probably don't want to do that, right? Like that's a safety concern. You could lose your funds. I mean, like you could lose your wallet. But ultimately, you apply those same first principles to cryptocurrency. You keep in a wallet that is easily losable a smaller amount of money, which allows you to transact on a day-to-day basis. And then in a more secure place, you would store the majority of your funds. So for the uninitiated, for just starting out, I would recommend certain wallets. I can drop some links later, but ultimately you would download an app. That app, when you start out, will give you a list of 24 words. It's very important that you don't take a screenshot of these words. You don't write them anywhere in your phone. They are visible on that phone only temporarily, and you should write them down. I think there are certain apps that show you those words later, but the idea is for you to not expose those words on a digital device unless absolutely necessary, and most times not at all. So this sounds very scary, I know, and I really hope that someday it's not as scary. But in today's world of crypto, like where we are in the evolution of it all, this is something that you need to do. So again,
Is
this is
it
coming back
basically
to
like not, is it basically like not saving your banking details as a
Yeah.
saved username password on Google Chrome, right? You
Yeah.
shouldn't do that.
correct.
So
You probably shouldn't do
similarly,
that,
you
and
wouldn't
you
want
probably also
to,
shouldn't put it in a Google sheet. Like you would
exactly,
want to keep that either in a password manager in your head or
right.
on a very secure place, whatever you determine is the most secure for your particular
Yeah.
use case.
We'll probably take
So,
your recommendation on a good password manager for our show notes as well, Yashu.
oh,
Or a few.
definitely, definitely. I am so big on password managers right now. Like everyone needs to have a password manager. But if, even though LastPass had this massive breach, I still think password managers get a bad rep, and I think it's because people may not understand it. But still, I think if you know your password, that's a weak password. You should not know your passwords,
Oh my God.
like at all.
Luckily, I don't know them. So,
That's it.
Yeah, I have weak passwords that I don't know. So I think it's it's a lose-lose situation here. That's really
good.
interesting. Once again, I have these wallets. So I have the MetaMask, I have the BNB wallet. I may have a couple of others because these dodgy
MetaMask is
coins that
great.
I was forced into, not forced into, but I FOMO'd into, I should say, at the beginning of my journey, were only available on certain wallets. So I was kind of led into that straight on. But I never
100%.
understood that was, and then I saw some stray video about the physical hardware, and the man was
Yes.
going on about it. But I never put the two together that they had the same functionality in terms of the hot and cold wallets that you just mentioned.
Um,
So it's not even the currency that sits on the wallet; it's just the seed phrase that sits on the ledger.
correct. And from that seed
Okay.
phrase, so I think it again comes down to that mathematical formula. From those two large prime numbers, you get a really large multiple of those two
Mm-hmm.
multiplied by each other. From that really large number, you can derive many, many different addresses for
Yeah.
various blockchains. So different blockchains have different address mechanisms. So much like in countries, right? So if you're in South Africa, we have the street name, then the street number, then the street name, then there's different conventions, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then a post box would have a completely different convention. So very much like how we have our society, where given a single human, Yashu, who could have many addresses in different physical locations, in blockchain, you've got the same thing. You've got your private key, which says that you're Yashu, and then you've got various addresses that Yashu can control. So
Got it.
Bitcoin's addresses would look completely different to Ethereum's addresses, would look completely different to Ripple's addresses.
Got it.
And what's unfortunate really is that there's not yet many wallets that have all the blockchains on them, unless you've got a hardware wallet. So things
Yeah.
like MetaMask are only available or only usable for Ethereum-based blockchains. So
Yeah.
Ethereum and all of its derivatives. Binance is again a derivative of Ethereum. Ripple has its own address mechanism. So look, there's 23,000 active cryptocurrencies right now in the world. That's a lot, right? Like
It's
that's a
mind-boggling.
ton. And ultimately all of them have the exact same mechanisms internally. So it's sad that the uninitiated still have
yeah.
to jump through a few hoops to be
That's why we
initiated.
need people like you.
Yes.
So hopefully that this does help.
Yeah.
Yes. So give us a couple of kind of concluding points, Yashu. Where does one start? I feel like we've just scratched the surface with a longer episode today as well. But where does one start really? Even to build awareness, because there's so much out there on YouTube or other channels that already might be putting people off.
Yeah. Um, so first of all, follow me on Twitter, Yashu_Tana. I'll eventually be starting a podcast that specifically tackles understanding blockchain from a very layman's perspective. So that would definitely be
Great.
step one. Step two is again, third time I'm going to say it, get a password manager. The third thing is